Right, so this little video clip we will call fancy training of fruit, or we could call it Espaliers, fans, Cordons, stuff like that. Or we could call it restrictive training of fruit. Basically, we're stopping the tree, turning it into a tree, and making it into some shape or other according to our purposes. My apologies for taking so long to get around to doing this video. It's only taken about 3 years or something like that. Also, this structure we've got behind us is a temporary one, obviously, that we made ages ago, and it's fell down and we've just resurrected it. Why would you want to do this, you may well ask. First reason might be if you use these restrictive forms of tree growing, if they're against a wall, a south facing, a favourable wall, the wall will warm up, the fruit will warm up, and you will get better quality fruit. Even more so if you paint the wall white, because you then will get reflection, won't you, off of the wall. Also, another reason you might consider doing this sort of thing is if you're short on space, because restrictive pruning is basically making trees 2D, two-dimensional. So you can stick a bunch of fans against the wall and they'll take up very little space. They won't. One tree might occupy your whole garden, but you could have a load of fans and cordons along the sides of the wall. As a rule, the south facing wall, the most favourable, you would put your peaches and nectarines and figs and things like that. Apples would go on the west facing wall. Stone fruit tend to go on the east facing wall, and on the least favourables, the north facing wall, assuming you've got 4 walls, you could train your soft fruit, because you and plums, for example, things that you cook with added sugar. Today I'll just deal with apples because that's a basic theory, and I've got a couple of apple trees here. So first of all, you choose your wall. Then you affix the wall a series of horizontal wires. Can you see that wire, Sean?
Yes, okay.
Spacing the wires every 2 feet. 2 feet from the ground, then 4 feet, then 6 feet. We use galvanized wire. We use soft iron wire. Soft iron wire is soft, as opposed to that spring wire that you put on fences. We use soft iron wire, 14 gauge it used to be called, and I think that's 2.5 millimeters, something like that.
Yeah.
So you can see that sort of thickness, something like that. If it's a wall, if we're fixing our wires to a wall, we could bang in these purpose-made pieces of metal that would keep the wire, once that's banged into the wall, about 4 inches from the wall itself. That's about the optimum distance. 4 inches means you can mess about pruning and tying easily. The only thing with these is they're crap, they're rubbish. You hit these in, the standard things, and they just bend when you're trying to bang them into the wall. So I just wouldn't bother with those. Much better to get your little drill a hole in the wall, put in a raw plug, a plastic plug, and then screw in a screw-in vine eye. Longer than this. This is just a short one I found. Longer than this to give you 4 inches clear. If you don't have a wall, or you prefer, you could use a wooden structure. Something like this is obviously approximating tannalized wood with a bracing bar, because the ends will tend to move in. So tannalized wood with a bracing bar. If we use wood to tighten up these saggy old wires, if we screwed one of these in this way, we can then screw it in, and that makes our adjustment. We can keep our wires tight. If you're using a wall or a more permanent structure, perhaps you could use one of these barrel, what are you called? Barrel what? What?
I don't remember.
Barrel tighteners. You turn the barrel and they pull together really tight. So we could have that on the wall, especially if we was doing the walls of some big posh place, some stately home, where you want a lot of adjustment. So we now have our wires every 2 feet against the wall or our structure we've made. We never tie a tree. We would never tie a tree. This is a tree. We would never tie it directly to the wire, because with movement of the tree and movement of the structure, it would cut through. We always fix our trees to bamboo canes. We could fix it with these little twisty things. You can buy it on a roll. You know, these little things. You just twist them and put them on. They're pretty rubbish. Or if you want something strong, you can use this stuff, which is tie-in tube. It's strong, has a bit of give, so the tree can grow into it. Or best of all, if you have a tape and a gun, see it there working, and there's your tree, and it holds it on. And tape and a guns are particularly good because it's one-handed. You can mess around and tape the tree to the cane with one hand. I omitted, obviously on purpose, to say how we fixed our canes to the wire. We could use just twists of wire to do that. I use one of these things. I think they call them potato tyres or something like potato sack tyres. That cost about 20 quid, and then for another 5 quid you can get 1,000 of these ties, these twist ties, preferably longer than these ones. These are 4 inches. 6 and 9 are much better. So we would, as you can see here, Sean, when you zoom in, we can just put these on, twist them, bend that out the way, and then it's one-handed. You can then knock these things around to adjust them and stuff. If you see there, actually, Sean, you're in there now. This is where we quickly, when we knock this thing up, we tighten this wire up by putting a screwdriver in and twisting. It's something you don't really want to do, because as you can see here, that twist has broken the galvanized layout on the galvanized wire and they rust. So don't do that. Where are we now, Sean? So we've now got our structure. Here is a fan. Got that, Sean?
Yep.
That is a fan, isn't it? Here, this one here is ready for an oblique cordon. Oblique means 45 degrees. So we will now plant our tree, our oblique cordon along here. Obviously the best time to plant is in the autumn. We haven't got time to wait for the autumn because it's still in the dregs of the summer. So we'd stick this tree in at an angle, bearing in mind how the tree was grafted. If you can zoom in, Sean, I come over here a bit. Can you zoom into the graft there? See there where my finger is, Sean? Yep. You see the graft there. If we mess about pulling this tree about, there's quite a good chance that that graft would snap. If we plant the tree the other way round, when we're messing about, got it there? That's the other way round, then the graft is much less likely to break. There it is there. So look at the graft when you're planting your tree. So I won't plant the tree, but we will pretend. So here we plant the tree. We put a brick under this cane. See that brick? And that we do that when we're setting up to keep the cane off of the ground. If you stick the cane in the ground or it touches the ground, the cane will rot from the bottom up. If we put this brick now removed, then the cane is suspended in mid-air and will last a lot longer. So we're going to plant our tree along here, and there we go, we've attached it to our cane. Happy with that?
Perfect.
And you can see here I've cut these branches here, these small branches, to 3 buds, preferably a downward facing bud, because they tend not to grow but they tend to plump up into fruit buds. You see that downward facing bud there, and you can see here there's a naturally occurring fruiting spur there. There's a fruit bud. So this tree here will start sending out little branches as it grows up, and we will summer prune these little branches to make them fruitful. And all of that stuff is on my summer pruning video. I won't bore you stiff for a second time. So there we go. That's basically it. Happy with that, Sean? That's an oblique cordon, and that will go up there. As you can see, with this growing up there, going to the top of the wire, we've got a triangle of nothing, an empty triangle. So what we tend to do, I'm over here, Sean, no, don't fall over. You're right.
Yep.
We would take a branch here, grow it along this cane here, and then take it up again. So thereby filling in that triangle. We can actually do that a couple of times sometimes.
So I guess that's only at the end of the row if you've got several.
At the end of the rows. At the opposite end of the row, there's no need to look. At the opposite end of the row, you will have an opposite triangle, and you do the opposite thing. Put in some extra small oblique cordons coming off that final tree. That makes sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
So that's an oblique cordon. Eventually these little shoots, they will end up say 9 inches long. So you've now got a nice columnar structure, if I said that right, of leaves and fruit going up there. Then the other bit there filling in that bit of no man's land.
And does the 45 degrees tend to make it more fruitful?
Yes. the 45 degrees tends to make it more fruitful. An upright branch grows very fast, not fruitful. A flat branch doesn't grow at all, really. It doesn't like it. 45 degrees is the optimum angle. If this got too vigorous and you've got a line of cordons, if you change them to say 55 degrees, lay them all over, that makes the cordon much longer. It saves you keep having to prune the thing back all the time, because you've now got, when they lean over more, you've got at 55 degrees, you've got, it's nearly half as much again longer. You can do the maths there, Sean. That's a oblique cordon, and there are other shapes of cordon that I will talk about in a minute. Sean, there's a fork there. Kick it, you're going to trip over it. I'll now talk about a fan. This here is a fan, isn't it? One up the middle and 3 either side. So it's a 7-point fan. When you go to your garden centres, ready-made fans, they're 50 or 60 quid a pop. Stop yawning. When you go to your garden centres, invariably they will sell you a 5-point fan. Well, 50 or 60 quid, that's a lot of money for a fan that will almost certainly fail. The reason for that is that the upright one, the middle one, gets more sack than everybody else, and it will turn your half-formed fan into a tree if you're not careful. So the number one rule with a fan is don't do the upright one in the middle last. You build your fan from the outside in. Yeah, so you would plant a maiden here where my foot is. Again, you can see the brick keeping the panes off the bottom. Plant your maiden there, cut it back in the spring, and then you take 2 buds. One will grow up there and one will grow up here. So your first 2 branches of your fan will be on the outside, and then the next year you take a couple of buds from those branches and do the second-most outside ones, and working your way inwards each year until finally you do this one up the middle. That gives you a balanced fan. Fans are relatively easy to do because if something goes wrong, if one of these branches died, you can just bend them over and rearrange it and no one will be the wiser, as opposed to Espaliers, which I will talk about in a minute. We've done oblique cordons, we've done fans. Happy with that, Sean?
Yeah.
Okay. If we look over here at these excellent diagrams, here is our oblique cordon, 45-degree trunk with little eventually 9-inch branches either side. We can also, we've got people coming, we can also, Sean, we can also plant a vertical cordon. You might want, at the end of the row for example, make a vertical cordon to finish things off. Obviously a vertical cordon is more vigorous, so at the end of the row often I would plant your tree on a smaller rootstock. It's less vigorous because also at the end of the row it has less competition.
And what rootstocks would you recommend for your regular cordons?
Probably M26 here and maybe M9 here. Yeah. This here, so oblique cordon, upright cordon. Here you can see this rubbish drawing is a U-shaped cordon, which the branch going up, we then pruned it and have 2 equal upright limbs.
So is that similar to how you'd start a fan then on a bigger scale? Just for those who were confused earlier.
Sort of in a way, not really though. This would just be 2 as a U shape. What you don't do is, which I've done in the past, make a 3-prongy one, a trident shape, because as we said earlier, the upright one will grow too strongly. So we cut that upright off to make a U. They will then grow up together. Here, another wonderful diagram is a multiple cordon, isn't it? This has got 4 coming up. You could have as many as you like. What are you doing that for?
You're on 20 minutes.
What?
You're on 20 minutes.
What does that mean? What does 20 minutes mean?
Get through them a bit quicker.
All right, I'll be quick. This here is an espalier. Yeah, 1 up, and in this case 3 across. Espaliers are quite difficult to do if you're going to get all 3 branches the same. When you You do them 1 year at a time. We're now looking at the first year at the bottom. If you just tied that branch flat, it wouldn't grow. So we would have tied that up at 45 degrees, and then when it starts growing and so on, we tie it down and then let it grow a bit more and work our way along. It won't grow if you have it flat, and then you can see the next year we've cut that one there and done the same thing. The problem with espaliers is that the top bit, the top tiers, tend to shade out the lower ones. These tend to be weak. We will often have to notch these. Look at the notching bit on my training other video clip. Basically, you're cutting up there in March with your little penknife to give those bottom weaker ones extra sap. This one here you can see is a crinkle crankle, the only one of those things with an English sounding name, and you can see it's a series of diamonds one on top of the other. You could grow that branch there and choose a bud and then go over there and choose a bud, or if you want to be quick like me, you just cut the inside of that with a chainsaw or a saw, and that branch will then bend. You can manipulate it over there like that.
So I take it where they cross over, that's a single branch going across, well,
yeah,
branches
that's two
going across
branches
each other,
crossing.
as opposed
If
to
you
attached.
want, you can pleach those two together where they cross. You could cut the back of the two bits of bark, join them together with a screw, your little screwdriver, and they will join as a more solid tree. This thing here, look at this bit here, is called a Belgian fence or Espalier losange. Losange as in lozenge shape. You can see those lozenge shapes here. So it's one up, and then you cut it back and have two at 45, and then if you do a series of those, you then get these lozenge shapes. If you want to really show off, you can then pleach the back and join them together like I've done here, and when the join bits, when it starts to sprout, cut them off, not flush but to a couple of buds, and gradually over the years that cut bit will expand and those little stumps will expand, and you then get an epicormic ball which looks like a little Second World War mine, a little ball of woody material with little lugs on, so you've got quite attractive in the winter.
So in this case you're attaching two different trees together, is that right? With
Yeah,
your pleaching?
yeah, that's right. But two apples or two pears or whatever.
And that works perfectly fine with different varieties, as long as it's the same
yeah,
species?
they don't mind.
Yeah.
They can't run away. So, and on the back here, oh, here we are. If you've got all your stuff against the wall, you might want a little area of, say, I don't know, Japanese wineberries or strawberries, a little flat area, or even flowers, and then finish that off with a step over. Then you have your path. A step over is normally an upright trunk, and then going across, two branches going across at 2 feet, like the bottom of a espalier, in fact. So obviously easy to make. Just cut it off at just below cut that as it was growing up there below the wire, and then train those two branches along. What I like to do for instant results is I will plant two, rather than plant this and cut it off. If you plant, sorry about this, Phil. If you plant like here, two crossing over and then along the wire, you've already got about 8 foot already done. So this is a much more instant effect. Again, you can, if you feel like it, you can make some kind of epicormic ball here where they cross, and obviously you train those little branches back to finish off your line of fruit. If these get too if you planted them and they're too vigorous, rather than have those two join up and stop, you can, what I often do is have them overlap. So then you've got two branches overlapping, and you can have red apple, green apple, red apple, yellow pear, or whatever.
And so is there a problem with step overs in terms of getting them to grow with the horizontal branches? Do you often have to tie them up at 45 and bend them
tie
down?
Them up at, yeah, just like an espalier. They won't grow flat, you grow them up at an angle, tie them down, and progressively tie them down. Don't let loads of weeds and stuff, flowers and stuff, grow underneath here, because it will start to get congested, because this wire's 2 foot above the ground, like this one here, but there will be a wreath of fruit and leaves. I think that'll do. Everyone's asleep by now, I imagine.
Yeah, I imagine so. Well done for making it to the end.
Thank you very much, Sean. There we go.
Take care, then.